Welcome everyone to our home food scrap composting workshop. My name is Katie McCain and I'm the Director of Sustainability for the City of Charleston. I'm really excited to be here tonight and present some information to you about how you can compost at home using a variety of different ways. Before we jump right in, I did just want to mention that we will meet today for an hour. And of course, the purpose of our meeting is to share ways that residents can compost at home, either by using our new food scrap drop-off program or by composting in your backyard. So before we jump right in, I'd like to introduce a couple of our panelists. If we could just go in order. So Ariel, if you'd like to go first.
Sure, thanks, Katie. So my name is Ariel Gerstein. I'm the new sustainability coordinator for the county, and I'm very excited to be helping out with this workshop.
Great, and Patrick?
Hi, I'm Patrick Downey. I am the Southeast Intake Sales Rep from McGill Environmental. We basically run the compost facility at Bees Ferry. Glad to be here.
Great. Courtney?
I'm Courtney Olson. I'm the Community Garden Manager for the Charleston Parks Conservancy, and we manage gardens at Medway Park, Magnolia Garden, and also at Corinne Jones Community Garden.
Excellent. Thanks, Courtney. And Stuart?
Hi, I'm Stuart Weinberg. I'm the community member to the Resilience and Sustainability Advisory Committee, and that's the committee that really oversaw the creation of the Charleston Climate Action Plan, and composting was part of that plan. And I am so thrilled that we are actually doing this and that you can get your hands involved in something to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So it's really exciting to be here. Thank you, Katie.
Great, thanks, Stuart. And Christina?
Hi, everyone. Christina Moskos with Charleston County Environmental Management. We manage the compost facility out at Bees Ferry with a partnership with McGill. So we are very excited to have some food waste from local residents come to our facility.
Great. Thank you, everyone. And Megan is with us from Smart Recycling and Amanda from DHEC, and they will introduce themselves when they present. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Let's get started here. So hopefully you all can see my slide here. It says Composting Home Food Scraps Workshop at the top. So it's really important that you all are here. Thank you all so much for spending your time with us tonight. I wanted to share that there are some webinar tools that will make this easier for us. So we are recording this, as you noticed, so it will be posted on the city's YouTube page and on our compost website if you need to go back and look at it again or want to share it with anyone. There is a Q&A feature that is the best place to put your questions. And if someone else asks a question that you want to ask too, you can actually promote it, and so it's not being duplicated. Use that chat box. If you put questions in there, that's okay. I just hope they won't get lost. We're gonna try to keep track of them, but try to use the chat box more for comments, or if you have ideas to share, things that work well that you found, please feel free to use the chat box for that. We'll also have some question time where you can raise your hand, and if you would like to speak and ask your question, you can do that too. So that's the raise your hand feature, and I'll go over these again when we get into the question section. So here's a quick look at our agenda. So we'll start by just going over the importance of composting and how the new program works. And then we're going to learn about the Bees Ferry compost facility and what items are accepted at that facility for composting. And then we'll take some questions about the new program. Then we'll talk about backyard composting and take any other questions that you have. And then I'll share information on how you can pick up your free swag. So I wanted to thank our partners. Smart Recycling is our contracted hauler, so they'll be transporting all the food waste that we collect to the Bees Ferry compost facility. DHEC is actually funded the program through a grant that we received from them. So thank you so much, DHEC, for your support. And the Coastal Conservation League has been really helpful in supporting this program. Charleston County, of course. Christina and Ariel are here from there, McGill, and the Charleston Parks Conservancy has been really helpful too. So thank you to all of our partners, and there's many more not listed on here too. So really quick, composting 101. Composting is a natural process. It's basically recycling organic matter, such as your food scraps and your yard waste, into a valuable soil amendment, and we call that amendment compost. So basically, this compost is rich in nutrients, and it can be used as a natural fertilizer in your gardens. And there's all kinds of benefits for that. So did you know that when you are composting, you are actually taking climate action? Composting is something little that we all can do to mitigate climate change and reduce our waste. So we actually adopted a climate action plan earlier in the year at the city, and it is a 5-year plan to reduce carbon pollution. And one of the actions in the plan is to create a residential compost program. So we are implementing that plan, and we're excited to announce that this program will help us achieve 3 goals in that plan. And our main goal here will be to decrease 20 tons of food waste going to the landfill. So just how does composting and climate change relate? Well, when we send food scraps to the landfill, they're actually creating methane. That's because when we bury food in a landfill and it's not receiving enough oxygen to decompose naturally, it's instead rotting and it's producing methane. And as many of us know, methane is a really potent heat trapping gas. It's actually over 25 times more potent than carbon dioxide. So by composting, we add oxygen into the process, and that eliminates that methane component. So it's really helpful to reduce emissions if you compost. So in addition to combating climate change, there's all kinds of other benefits of composting too. It reduces trash going to the landfill, and of course, expenses relating to trash collection and storage. It also protects against flooding. When we add compost to our soil, we're adding organic matter to our soil, and then it can actually hold more water. So it increases the stormwater absorption capacity of our soils, which is why it's great to keep it in your yard if you can. And of course, it's a natural fertilizer, so it eliminates the need to add chemical fertilizers that could harm our ecosystems. So basically, the new program is a drop site program, and it's going to be free for city residents, and there'll be 3 different drop sites that we will be testing: Ackerman Park in West Ashley, Corinne Jones Park on the peninsula, and Medway Park on James Island. And you can sign up for this program online. I know many of you have already done it. I think a key note here is this is a pilot project. So we are testing logistics of how this program will work for about 6 months. Now, if the program is successful and we figure out the optimum way to operate it, then we can then seek additional funding to potentially expand the program beyond 6 months and also expand to additional drop sites. So keep in mind, there's only 3 pilot drop sites because we're testing them first. So here's how you participate. You collect the food scraps at home. You can do it in any container with a lid, ideally. It's also really helpful to store these in your freezer. I do that a lot. Then just take your food scraps to the nearby drop-off site and dump them into a cart, and then rinse your container and repeat. So for a container, we are giving away some free bins. I'll talk about that towards the end. But any bin will really work. You can upcycle a used container. You could use an empty ice cream tub, and there's many available in local retail stores or online to purchase if you'd rather do that. Our food scrap carts in the parks will be serviced at least twice a week. So when the West Ashley Farmers Market starts, you'll also be able to drop off your scraps at that market. That will be in the spring though. So here's an example of what a drop site looks like right now. We will be having more permanent signage installed once we test these locations and they are set. And here's a closer up map of the drop sites. So you can see Ackerman Park is going to be located right off the parking lot in front of the pond. Corinne Jones Park, the site will be on Hester Street, right in front of the community garden. And at Medway Park, if you enter the parking lot on the Medway Road, you'll see that the compost carts right next to the community garden there too. These parks are open from dawn until dusk, 365 days a year. So that's when you can drop off the food scraps. And if you'd like a more detailed map, you can zoom in on this on our website. And also keep in mind, it's a pilot program, so some of this could change and all the updates will be on our website. So how do you put the food scraps into the carts? Well, you can do it one of 2 ways. You can either pour the loose food scraps into the cart from your bin, or you can drop in a bag that is a compostable bag. And it's really important that the compostable bag is BPI certified compostable. There's a really big difference between just biodegradable and compostable, and Megan will talk more about that. Our food waste carts have a maximum fill level, so you can see it's not all the way to the top. These carts get heavy. And contamination is a really big challenge in any compost program because there's nobody going in there to sort through the material. It's very unsafe to do that. So that means that to keep the material, the end product safe for everyone, we want to make sure what's going in is accurate, which is why we've had the rigorous training program when you sign up, and we will be locking these bins. So right now they have a minor lock on them that helps prevent any animals from getting in, but they will be upgraded soon with some different lids that will have padlocks on them. And to get that lock combination, if you haven't already, you have to sign up and then you will get that lock code that way. So if you haven't already signed up, here's the website where you can go, and I'll put all this in the chat here shortly. I did want to mention our free swag. So while supplies last, we have some a sample of compostable liner bags for y'all to give a test. We have some kitchen compost caddies for folks. The first 200 people who signed up for the workshops will get an email later tonight. And then if you don't get a caddy, we do have some magnets and stickers. So if you want to put a sticker on a caddy you already have, or put a magnet on your fridge to help you remember which items are accepted, that's a good way to do it also. So I will talk more about that swag towards the end. And now I'm gonna turn it over to Megan, who's gonna talk about how the Bees Ferry compost facility works and what items are accepted there for composting. So Megan.
I'm here. Sorry, guys. Okay, everybody can see that okay?
Yes.
So thanks for having me, Katie. As Katie mentioned, I'm Megan McGill with Smart Recycling, and we will be the hauler for the city's pilot compost program. So let's jump right in and talk about the compost life cycle. Once you collect your scraps at home, you will take it to a city designated drop-off site. Twice a week, Smart Recycling, or more as needed, will be emptying the smart carts into our trucks and taking it to the McGill Bees Ferry compost facility. From there, they will process it and turn it into nutrient-rich compost that can be purchased and used to grow new food. And so the cycle continues. So how does this composting magic work? The short answer is science. Here's a quick overview of the science behind composting and the process that McGill uses at our Charleston County facility. First, yard waste and food waste are brought into the facility, and accepted material is separated based on whether it is yard waste or food waste, and the yard waste has to be ground up so it will break down in the compost piles. Once enough material is received, a mix is made from 10 parts of yard waste to 1 part food waste, and then that mixture is placed into piles called windrows, as you can see those here in this slide. After materials complete 15 days at 131 degrees Fahrenheit, it is moved to aerated static piles to cure for 30 days. Once all regulatory requirements have been met, the cured material is removed from the ASP batches and is screened for sale. If you are interested in purchasing some of the compost that was created from your efforts, they do offer 2 options. The first is to take a 5-gallon bucket to the landfill and fill it with premium compost for just $1 a bucket. I do recommend you checking their website to see if it's available before driving over there. The second would be to go to their Bees Best website to find a retailer near you that carries their compost in bulk. If you still have questions after this presentation, we have Patrick Downey on the call with us, and he can answer those at the end. Also, a copy of this presentation will be available at the city's website so that you can review these slides in more detail. Now, let's talk about what is okay to put in the bins. Acceptable compostable items include fruits and vegetables. Anything that came from your garden can be composted or came out of a garden. This rule still applies even if you actually bought it at the grocery store. All the parts you didn't eat or cut off during meal prep can go in the compost bin. Dairy products, including milk, cheeses, and yogurt, can go in your compost bin. Small amounts of compostable liquids. These might include soups or fruit juices. For example, if you just cut up your watermelon and there's juice and rind left over, those can both go in your compost bin. Or if you made chicken noodle soup and the leftovers went bad before you could eat it, that can go in your compost bin too. Processed foods. This includes everything that is edible that is made in a factory. For example, pizza, cereal, chips, crackers, cookies, and cakes are all processed foods that can be composted. Plate scrapings also can go in. Everything edible that didn't get eaten can be scraped into your compost bin. As I mentioned earlier, this also includes any food scraps created while preparing your meal. Bread, dough, pasta, and baked goods can also go in your compost bin. This includes fresh, homemade, and store-bought items. This could be the ends of the loaf of bread your kids refuse to eat, or the leftover spaghetti that was forgotten in the fridge, or any other bread, pasta, or baked good item that you can think of that can go in your compost bin. Food soiled paper includes paper bags with food waste on them, dirty paper towels and napkins, waxed cardboard like the boxes that produce comes in at the grocery store. But do note that if you have clean, non-waxy cardboard, that needs to be recycled and not composted. Also, BPI compostable food containers are also accepted. They must be BPI certified. Biodegradable does not mean compostable. So make sure you see the BPI certified label. We'll go over that in more detail in just a minute. Coffee grounds, filters, and tea bags can go in your compost bin, but double check your tea bags. A lot of them have those staples in them, so you'd want to remove the staple before putting that in. And remember, we're talking about paper filters and paper tea bags. We're not talking about single-use plastic pods. Those would not be compostable. Eggs and shells can go in your compost bin, as well as cooked meat, fish, bones, and shells, except for oyster shells. SCDNR does have a separate recycling program for those. You may be wondering why you can compost meat, fish, dairy, and even BPI certified compostable materials in this pilot program, but not in your backyard compost. The main reason is that commercial composting is a scientific process with strict guidelines. They monitor the temperatures and aerate the piles to ensure a much faster decomposition process. In short, they use a specific scientific recipe and they make sure that their compost cooks at higher temperatures. If you were composting at home, things like bones and BPI certified material would not break down as quickly. These items also attract pests and rodents and can be quite smelly if they don't compost quickly. As I mentioned, the program does accept BPI certified composting materials. So you need to look for this logo. You can use BPI certified compostable bags to collect your waste. If you prefer to use a bag for storage or transport, make sure you look for the BPI certified logo. If it is not BPI certified, it won't break down in the composting process. As I mentioned, the word biodegradable is not the same as compostable. For a product to claim they are biodegradable, they must break down in the earth eventually, but that could take a long time, even years. But BPI certified compostable products have been tested to ensure they will break down in the commercial composting process. So please look for this logo before purchasing compostable bags and anytime you're trying to compost a soiled food container. . Now that we know what can go into the compost bins, let's talk about what should not go in. Raw meat, plastic items. Plastic items includes bags, utensils, cups, and any kind of single-use plastic disposable ware. Styrofoam, fats, oils, and grease. These items interfere with the composting process. Non-food items. So non-food items include wood, metal, glass, and ceramics, and shouldn't go in your compost bin. Also, pet droppings do not belong in the compost bin. Please dispose of these in your regular trash can. Yard debris. You may have heard me talk about yard debris in the composting process. This is an important ingredient, but the facility needs to handle it separately. This is why the city offers curbside pickup of your yard debris. The compost facility needs to grind this up before adding it to the compost to ensure proper breakdown. Make sure if you're participating in the community garden, you continue to put your garden waste in the proper place there. Garden waste does not go in the smart carts. Finally, no chemicals. This includes cleaning agents. So if you're looking for ways to improve the smell of your compost bin, you can use natural deodorizers such as baking soda or cinnamon. Other options include purchasing BPI certified compostable liners or simply storing your compost in the freezer. If you are feeling overwhelmed with all this information, here's a few simple rules to help you remember the basics. Is it edible? If you could eat it, it can be composted. Did it come from the earth? If it came from the earth, it can go back to the earth by composting. And most importantly, when in doubt, throw it out. Now that we have gone over the broad list of things that do not go in your compost bin, let's talk about a few sneaky items that are commonly found in the kitchen or on or near your food. And these items are not compostable. Plastic bags. I know we've covered that several times, but it's really important to keep plastic out of the compost bin. Bread, ties, and tags, those are made of plastic or metal and shouldn't go in your compost bin. Produce stickers. Make sure that you peel those off your banana or other produce before putting it in the compost bin. Rubber bands, you'll sometimes see those on broccoli or asparagus, but they also are not compostable. These are all examples of things that should not belong in your compost bin. Always avoid putting plastic, glass, cans, or anything inorganic in your compost bin. If it can be recycled, it does not belong in the compost bin. A great rule of thumb is if you can eat it, it can be composted. This holds true even if the food's gone bad and is technically no longer edible. It's important to only put compostable material in the bins because if contamination is found in one of the smart carts, all of its contents must be sent to the landfill. That's why the smart carts will have locks on them, because contamination is so detrimental to the program that we're locking the carts to keep people from throwing regular trash in them. Most importantly, just remember, when in doubt, throw it out. Smart Recycling is excited to be partnering with the city for this pilot compost program. If you'd like to learn more about our services, please visit our website or give us a call. We provide service to commercial customers in the Tri-County area, as well as Columbia and Myrtle Beach. I'll also share my contact info in the chat.
Great, thanks so much, Megan.
Absolutely.
So Megan, could you stop sharing your screen? So at this point, we're going to take some questions. So I see there are a lot in the chat. I think one of the big take-home messages, hopefully you got from when Megan and I were speaking, was contamination is just such a huge challenge in any composting program. So we're doing everything we can with the lock bins and education to help folks get properly trained on this. But ultimately, what happens if we see contamination in these carts is the carts are going to be landfilled. So because we can't pick through them, if it's evident, then we will need to take the full carts to the landfill. So obviously, if we keep experiencing problems where we have to landfill carts, that would mean the program is not being very successful. So we really need everyone's help from the very beginning to reduce contamination on the front. So, so during this question period, I see there's a lot in the Q&A box. That's great. Feel free to use the chat box, or if you prefer to chat, you can raise your hand. So I'm going to stop the sharing and we'll just take questions for a few minutes. So it looks like, I'll just start from the top. I know coffee grounds are okay, but what about coffee filters? Coffee filters are fine. Thank you, Christina. Dropping off at Beast Ferry. No, there is not currently a drop site at Beast Ferry. I don't know, Patrick, do you have anything to add to that?
No, there's not one now. There might be an option in the near future as we kind of move forward. 2022 is kind of a big year for us. Do a lot of developing there. But as of right now, there is not one there.
Great, thank you. We will provide our contact information. It's obviously on these slides that we'll post on the website, and we'll try to put them in the chat towards the end here. Feel free to reach out to us. Let's see. Is this program permanent, or is it subject to be potentially discontinued in 6 months? So this is a pilot program. So if it's successful after 6 months and we still have funding, we could continue it. I could potentially see it possibly being extended till the end of the year if it's going well. If we find that we are constantly landfilling carts because they're contaminated, that obviously means our program isn't being very successful. So we'll have to rework that somehow, and that could cause it to stop. So that's why we keep saying contamination is one of our biggest challenges to get ahead of. Eggshells can go in either. Eggshells, I think, can go in your backyard and your our program. Thank you, Marlo. Tea bags have staples. So the tea bags can go in the paper, but please remove the staples. So think of if you were to go pick up this compost at and purchase it somewhere, you wouldn't want to find a staple in it, right? When you were planting your vegetables. So think of it that way. Don't want any pieces that don't belong in the final material to go into the batch at all. Paper with wax on it is okay to compost. Okay, so this gets tricky. There are, I think Christina and Patrick should probably take this one, because there are some compostable to-go containers that have a little wax coating, and those are okay. But then there are cups that have a much stronger coating, and those are not okay. So I'm gonna let y'all take that.
You know, I kind of erred on no, because we've got certain things that have that waxy material on them that just don't break down very well out of there. They will break down, but it takes a lot longer to do so. So, I mean, if you get something like that, like I answered one question, I put like a Starbucks cup, and everybody thinks that's recyclable, but it's really not. So we try to avoid the waxy material. It will break down, but you know, we don't want to sit there for 5 years breaking down. That's the best answer I can give.
And I can add just briefly to that. A lot of times what looks like a waxy lining might actually be multiple different materials layered together. So possibly even a plastic lining, a paper lining. So just like Patrick said, err on the side of caution and leave anything that looks like it's got that waxy surface out of compost.
I did see a question in here. Thank you for that clarification. There's another one in here about grocery bags. I think it might be referring to paper grocery bags, because everyone knows the plastic are not, and they should not be in our city anyway, right? But what about the paper grocery bags? Could people drop off compost in one of those bags?
Yes, absolutely. That paper bags are absolutely fine.
Thank you. Generally, though, prefer a whole handful of paper bags to be recycled though versus being composted, correct? Yes, so only drop off the paper bag if your food scraps are actually in that bag. Otherwise, recycling is the best for paper. If some food has oil on it, veggies or bread, or I even heard someone say yesterday's meat, should it not be composted? If it has a little oil, it looks like that's okay, Patrick? We just don't want a whole bunch of oil?
Sure, yeah, we don't want them to dump in cups or, bottles of some type of oil or liquid like that. Most of us cook our foods in some kind of olive oil or butter or something like that. That's absolutely fine.
Perfect. Okay, and let's see, I'm just sorting through the chat here. Will other cities like Isle of Palms or Mount Pleasant offer drop-off locations? I don't often go downtown. So this program is being managed by the city of Charleston. So our drop sites are City of Charleston parks. I highly encourage you to reach out to other jurisdictions, let them know you're interested. This is typically how programs start in cities, right? When we hear from our residents that people are interested in doing composting. So I highly encourage you to reach out to folks. But currently we are using our 3 drop sites. And if we expand, it would be in the city of Charleston because this is the city program. If veggies have been cooked in oil, we got that one. Thank yous, I appreciate that. How are you going to track the results of the 6-month program? So Smart Recycling will actually be tracking the pounds of food waste we collect in each cart from each tip. So we'll be able to see where we're getting it from what site and if there's any contamination. And if there's contamination, then we will have to address that separately. But yes, data is very important. We like to use data to make more informed decisions. Our pizza box is okay. Christina or Patrick, do you want to take that one?
So I can speak to, is a pizza box okay for recycling? And generally what we say is the lid is always going to be recyclable. If you need to rip the lid off, especially if there's a whole bunch of fats and grease in the bottom or even food residue. If the bottom is completely clean, then you can recycle the bottom as well. If it's just got some crumbs, knock the crumbs out, the whole box can go in recycling. As far as the fats and oils, Patrick, I'll defer to you on that one with composting.
Yeah, that's kind of an ongoing thing. I mean, I've seen them in there before. I would prefer them not to go in there. I mean, if you've ever been out to the landfill, we've got tons of seagulls and birds out there. Any type of something like that, they're going to grab it and carry it away and send it to somebody's neighborhood or something like that. So, we want to keep the anything like that has oils or something on that kind of out of there, if possible.
Great. Okay, thank you both. If you arrive to a cart being full, you would contact me. You can call me or email me, and I'll share my contact information here in the chat soon. And then I would figure out how we can pick it up faster and get an empty bin out there with Megan's help. Let's see, there's some other open questions. What about compostable silverware? So if this compostable silverware is BPI certified compostable, it is allowed, right, Patrick? But it's hard to tell that. So do you have any comments on that?
No, that's an ongoing challenge. I mean, a couple pieces of silverware are not going to kill us in our process, but it's just a matter of people really don't know what silverware is compostable, and they just think if it's plastic, throw it away in there. I go back to the era of you're not sure, it doesn't go in there.
Thank you. When in doubt, throw it out. That works for recycling too. Can you put old soup in the compost? Yes, soup can go in the compost. Are we expected to cut up large items like watermelons and pumpkins? Good question. Patrick?
No, absolutely not. We don't care what size it is. We've got large loaders out there mixing and blending stuff. During the holiday season, especially Halloween, Thanksgiving, we get a lot of gourds and pumpkins and things like that. And it's whole shape. So, no need to cut it up. You know, of course, if you're dealing with smaller bins, we don't want you to take up a whole bin by putting a whole watermelon in there. If you can cut it up into pieces, it saves room for other people trying to use it as well. But coming to us, it really doesn't matter.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Jillian. Signing up for the seminar, the same as signing up to compost, or is there a separate procedure? Yeah, good question. So the registering for the webinar only registered you for the webinar. So there is a separate sign up if you go to that compost webpage that's in the chat, that there'll actually be a Google form that you fill out where you're located and what site you're going to use. And there'll be a short training to go through there. So everyone will pass the exact same training who wants to participate in the program. And that's how you'll get the lock code. By going through this workshop, it should be really easy for you. You should be able to cruise right through it in 5 minutes. So you do need to sign up separately. Corinne Jones Community Garden has a compost pile now. Should we put our garden scraps in the bins now? Good question. I'm going to pitch this one over to Courtney. These two should be kept separate. So these are food scrap carts, food scraps, not yard scraps. So the city already has a yard collection program that's curbside. Please use that. And the community gardens also have their own compost pile. So keep plant debris in the compost pile. The food scrap carts are only for food. Courtney, do you have anything to add to there?
No, we'll continue to deal with the debris piles at the gardens the same way we have been. So just the stuff that's coming from your house can go to this program, and the stuff that's just within the garden fence, just keep putting it in the piles you've been putting them in.
Okay, great. You're coming a little soft for me, so I'll repeat what you
Right.
said if folks didn't hear, but the debris piles at the gardens will stay there. So keep your plant debris in your garden debris piles. If you have a rotten tomato, you can put it in either pile. You can put it in the food scrap cart, but generally no plants, no roots, no big stems coming in the food waste carts, please. All right, are milk cartons okay to compost, the waxy kind? No. Milk cartons are not compostable. Christina, are they recyclable?
Yes, they can be included in recycling. All cartons are accepted.
Great, thank you. Commercially compostable takeout dishes like Verde. So yes, this program will take compostable to-go containers as long as they're certified BPI compostable, and Verde's containers are. This program will take them. So that's a really big benefit, since a lot of our restaurants are using them now too. And those will not break down in your backyard as easily, because you won't get to the high temperatures that McGill can get to. Why is raw meat unacceptable? Patrick, you want to take that one?
Yeah, that's just something that we don't want to put in there. Again, you ever been to the landfill? There's a lot of birds out there. We just don't want to attract more birds and other animals out there coming to eat out of there. It's not good. Any cooked meat you got is good, but raw meat is not good. Great,
thank you. The program started this weekend. The bins were out in the parks, yes, on Sunday. You mentioned a 20-ton gallon goal. That's just our goal for the first 6 months. So hopefully we surpass that. I had a friend ask if he could use cardboard boxes from Amazon to put his veggie in. He doesn't use paper bags. I wouldn't, I'll let Patrick answer this, but I'm thinking don't put the cardboard box in the cart just because it takes up so much room. I would dump the scraps loosely in if you're going to store them temporarily in the box. Does that sound right? Okay, thank you. Yeah, it's expensive to dispose of these food waste carts, so let's keep the bulky items out and just leave them for food scraps. Can you compost fruit and veggie seeds? Of course. Can you compost unbleached parchment paper? Christina or Patrick, parchment paper?
I would say yes, that's 100% fiber, correct?
Yep. It'll break down fine.
Great, thank you. If one site has several contaminated bins, will there be feedback to users on that site? Yes, I have all your emails. I will be in touch. I will let you know if there's problems. We'll also be posting updates on the website. Any recommendations or tips for beginners? We have what we think is okay to set up in our yard. Yes, we're going to talk about backyard tips here in just a moment. What if you spray your counter with commercial cleaner like Clorox and then wipe it down? Can that paper towel go in? I would say no. We don't want chemical cleaners in there. A suggestion, we had very large recycling center back in Wisconsin. We hired senior citizens who monitored. Yeah, actually, Beth, we have volunteers at each site that are monitoring these sites. So they're also reporting if the bins are full. So thanks for the suggestion. And if anyone else wants to help volunteer and report back to me, please just email me and let me know. Does the county currently accept compostable materials from big commercial producers? I'll let Christina take that one.
Yeah, I can answer that. So absolutely, you would just need to reach out to a hauler that could deliver the material to the McGill compost facility.
Yep,
Yeah,
and that would be the
piggyback
same
on-
for businesses too.
Yeah, piggyback on that. We have several that are coming now. Any of your large grocery stores that leftover food, bad food that's full, is like something like that. They all come out there to us now.
Great, thank you. My compostable veggies will be frozen. Do I need to defrost them? No, you do not. Just drop them off. If something says it is compostable in an industrial compost facility, would it be accepted here? It has to say BPI certified compostable. So any other jargon could just be jargon. So make sure this certification is on there, please. Will there be more than one bin at the drop site? There's 2 bins at each site for now. We're going to gauge how fast they fill based on participation, and we might need to add more bins or pick them up more frequently. Have we considered introducing more oil recycling sites? The county actually manages recycling, so I'm going to pass on that question. Where can the BPI bag liners be purchased? You can get them at assortment of retail stores. There's an FAQ on our website that lists some. I know they're available at Whole Foods. You can certainly buy them on Amazon and other places. We're actually trying to get them into a local store nearby, and we'll post all that information on the website once we have it. Is there anywhere we can drop off homemade compost? I don't think so. I would keep it for yourself or share it with a friend. Can disposable birchwood cutlery be composted? Christina?
My answer to that would be yes, just small amounts of wood I don't think are going to be a huge issue, but Patrick, I'll let you run with that one.
Yeah, that'd be fine. We're not going to have anybody come in with big truckloads or something like that, so that would be okay.
Okay, great. Success metrics, we are going to share our basic measure is tons of food waste that we divert. So obviously any food waste that's going to the landfill because it's contaminated is not being diverted from the landfill. So that's our success metric, and that's what we'll be reporting on. The best way you can make it as a success is to make sure people know that these bins can't be contaminated, because that would destroy the program. Can you shred some of your smaller cardboard items into your compost bucket like toilet paper rolls? Those should be recycled. So recycle paper products. Use the compost if you have like a paper napkin that has food on it. That's when you want to compost a paper product. All right, and I see that there are 2 people that have raised hands. So let's go to Lee and then Peter, and then we're gonna keep moving with our backyard program. And you can keep putting questions in the Q&A. We will answer them, even if we'll stop the program at an hour, but a few of us can stay on if you have more questions, but just to respect everyone's time. So Les, you are unmuted, or unmute yourself, and you should be able to ask your question. Les, we can't hear you. Okay, I'm gonna try Peter. Peter, can you talk? Peter or Les, can you unmute yourself? Okay, I'm not hearing from either of you, so if you can just write your question in the chat or the Q&A, we'll try to come back to it, okay? All right, so next I want to introduce Amanda Edwards, who is with SCDHEC, and she's going to talk to us about backyard composting. So take it away, Amanda.
Thanks, Katie. I am going to share some slides and we'll go through these pretty quick. Again, if you have questions, throw them in the Q&A or the chat. I'm trying to look at both while I talk, but we may have to come back to some. So I work for DHEC's Office of Solid Waste Reduction and Recycling. It's a mouthful. We just call it the Recycling Office, but it's at the state DHEC office. And I also help out with one of our campaigns called Don't Waste Food SC. Our campaign is really to get people to reduce their food waste, just like you're already on here trying to do. We know that sometimes a refrigerator that looks like this ends up food in the trash. So lucky for you, you're having different options in your city and county, and you have an option in your own backyard. Unfortunately, food is the #1 item found in landfills, not only here in South Carolina, but nationally. So that's a problem. Don't Waste Food SC was designed by DHEC with internal partners, state partners, as well as other public and private partners, basically just to get the word out about reducing food waste. We took on the EPA's hierarchy, food recovery hierarchy, and basically picked 3 items that we thought we could focus on from a state level. The first of those is that top one, source reduction, which we prevent food waste through prevention. So with that, we have lots of tips that we can share through the Don't Waste Food program. The other one that we also focus on is donation. Again, you can check out our website. I'll throw that in the chat in just a minute. The big one we're going to focus on today, though, is composting, specifically composting in your own backyard. So composting feeds our soil. While some people see the plate on the left as trash, scraps, we can't consume it, we can't really do anything with it. Now, I could probably go back and forth with a few of you on actually you could do a lot of other things with, especially those orange peels. But for this purpose, we want to talk about composting them and really putting all of those nutrients back into our soil. So I'm going to show you a really quick video. Don't try to read all the words. We're going to talk about it. Okay, so like I said, that was going to be fast, but that is actually from my very own kitchen. And a lot of times what we find ourselves in a position is we have these random scraps. What do we do with them? We hate to put them in the trash. So why not compost them? Composting at home is fairly simple, and it really starts with the basics of browns and greens. Now, of course, there's a couple more elements that are required to make compost work, but let's talk about the browns and greens. A lot of those you've already discussed with Megan and the team online today. But for your backyard composting, it's going to be slightly different than what you can put in that drop off. So for your backyard, you are going to kind of need a recipe, and we're going to talk about the ratios of what you need, but let's just talk about the definitions of what's okay and what's not. So the same for greens, which are also your nitrogens, which is the food part of it, which is all that you can drop off in the new drop off bins. Unfortunately, in your backyard, though, you're a little more limited, but that's simply because the temperature is not going to get hot enough in your backyard pile or bin that it's not going to break down things like cooked meats. Fruits and vegetables, raw or cooked, are great and fine if they're frozen. It might take a little longer to compost in your backyard, but it's not a problem. Coffee grounds, filters, tea bags. The staples are really tiny in those tea bags, but we really do recommend that you take them out. As Megan mentioned before, think about what you're putting in your compost is what's coming out. So when in doubt, throw it out. Eggshells are great, especially if you're a tomato gardener and you're using it for this, because they're going to provide lots of calcium to your compost. And then any kind of green grass trimmings, not the dried ones, but plant clippings, things like that, that's going to count as your greens. So things that you do not see on this list that you do not want to include are those things like meat, cooked or raw, bones, oily foods, and then of course things like plastic bags, coated paper trash. None of that you want to put in your backyard compost. For one, it's not going to break down, but for two, it's not going to give you a good end product. So for your browns, things like dried leaves, shredded newspaper, we don't recommend shredded bleached paper like notebook paper. You're not going to really want to shred that. Those have different toxins from the bleach that's in there. But things like sawdust, wood shavings, make sure that's not from painted or treated wood though. That's very important. And then I think someone asked about cardboard or paper tubes. Of course, recycling is your first option. But if you have food residue on those and you want to cut them up and put them into your backyard compost, and say you don't really have a supply of dried leaves or dried grass or anything like that, the cardboard, shredded newspaper can serve as your browns. We get this question a lot as well. What about pine straw? So pine straw in small amounts is okay for your backyard compost, but if you've raked your whole yard and you live on a half-acre, quarter-acre lot, you're not going to want to put all that pine straw in your backyard compost because it's going to make it way too acidic, which is just going to burn the plants that you're putting it on. So let's talk about that recipe really quickly. So for us at DHEC, we find that there's no wrong answer unless your compost is rotting, which it's decomposing. You want that. You don't want it to rot. What we have found is 3 browns or 3 carbon sources to 1 green. So just to give you an example, let's say you filled up a measuring cup of 1 cup of food waste. You would need 3 cups of dried leaves, shredded newspaper, or something like that to balance out in your compost bin. Now, some people like a 4-to-1 ratio. Some people can even go half and half. It really depends on your bin, the size of your bin, how often you're turning it, how much sunlight and water it gets. So this is kind of something you have to play with. But once you get the recipe right, your compost will be great to add to your garden. I can tell you this, a troubleshooting point. When in doubt, throw it out is a great one. But for backyard composting, when in doubt, add more browns. That's usually the answer. So if your compost smells bad, or it is not decomposing correctly, it's not making compost, or you see a lot of extra insects or other animals coming to your compost, you probably need to add more browns. You have too much food. And another great tip is to make sure when you're adding to your bin and filling up that you want to always end with browns on the top. That's going to help keep smell down. It's also going to help keep that temperature in. And in your compost, you can measure it get a probe thermometer and measure it yourself, but it's not necessary. But that temperature on average is going to be anywhere from 135 to 160 degrees. Your optimal temperature, though, is going to be in that 145 to 150 range. If you get above 160, you're really killing all the good organisms that are breaking everything down. You don't want to do that. If you don't get it hot enough, things are not going to decompose. So talking about bins, here's a couple of examples. And I think in the workshops coming up, I think there are some bins that are going to be given out. And those are going to be very easy to use, very easy to manage. But here you can see there's a lot of different options. And the bottom right, that's just really chicken wire, kind of all put together. And then someone in the middle built a really fancy one with wood and chicken wire. On the bottom left, you can see it's just a pile. There's no bin. Of course, you want to make sure in your neighborhood or your community that you meet any kind of requirements as far as you don't want to have a ginormous pile out there that is not managed well. So bins are usually an easier manageable option. Now, what you're going to see is little worms coming to your bin. You're also going to see some other little creepy crawlies, and don't be alarmed. Most of the time, those are good. You want those. That's what's helping break down all of that food waste and carbon that you put in there. Now, a lot of people ask us about vermicomposting. That's composting with worms. The worm castings do make a great addition to compost, but you're not going to want to try to add worms to your bin. If you dump those in the middle of that bin, it's going to get too hot and they're just going to die. So let them come naturally and they'll do their thing. So composting is really reaping what you sow. What you put in, it's what's going to come out. And you put your compost to work in your own garden. That's the best use for it. So just think every time that you're composting something, think about the nutrients that that's providing to your compost, which is going to come through your garden. And if you think that it's probably not good for your garden, then you probably don't want to put it in your compost. We have some other guides available at on our DHEC websites, and I will add those links into the chat so that you'll have them. And these guides will walk you through step by step how to build a bin if you're looking to build one, or how to manage an already existing bin. I did put on here our school guide. If you are composting with school-aged children at home, I recommend taking a look at this guide as well. It's essentially very similar information as our home guide. It's just geared more towards that age group. So that chart that I showed you before with the browns and greens, there's a kid version in this guide. It's very helpful. And then some other things that we do at DHEC to help promote composting. We're going into classrooms and helping teach composting and mentoring programs, as well as encouraging businesses to get involved with composting contracts and commercial composting. If you're looking for some easy tips or videos to watch on kind of how all of this works or other options for food waste reduction, check out any of our Don't Waste Food SC social media. And last but not least, if you want to be an ambassador for Don't Waste Food SC, anyone, individual, all the way up to manufacturer and anything in between, the ambassador program is really just to help promote food waste reduction within our state. And also composting is one of the ways that you can participate. So here's my information, and I'm going to try to jump on the chat and see, and I'll add those links for you as well. Last one I see is pallets are good for raised gardens too. Yeah, so when you're building your own raised gardens or compost bins, pallets are great. You do want to really try to find those untreated wood pallets if you're going to go with that version. Just know that you may have to change that wood out as the years go on. I mean, they're not going to decompose quickly, but you don't want to have that decomposition of the wood happening with the treated material in there.
And I saw another question.
Yeah.
Would adding more browns help keep rats from invading the compost bin? Question.
We can hope. So rats are a whole different story. Of course, they can bury into your compost a little different than other animals probably will. But keeping your carbon high in your compost will help reduce the smell, which is what's going to attract them in the first place. So more than likely adding more browns will help. I can't promise that it will completely deter them, but it will help.
Great. Thank you. Well, that was excellent. I know Amanda could talk about backyard composting for a long time, and we are actually going to host another workshop where we talk more about backyard composting the end of February. So stay tuned for that. Updates will be posted on our website. We will keep taking questions. We are I'm gonna wrap up here really quick with some finishing slides. That way anyone who needs to jump off can. But if you would like to stay and ask some questions, we are happy to hang out a little bit longer to help answer all your questions. So let me just share my screen here. So and maybe this is better for Christina to share, but Christina, I'll let you share this and I'll put your contact in the chat.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Because I am going to have to jet off here in a second, unfortunately. So through funding also from DHEC, we are in the process of purchasing a limited number of backyard composting bins that we will provide at no charge to any Charleston County resident. So regardless of whether you're in the city or in another area of Charleston County, that we plan to distribute probably around Earth Day in April. So if anyone is interested, Katie can share my contact information. Just shoot me an email. We will have a formal sign up because it will be first come, first serve, but we are excited to get these out to folks so everyone can kind of put their new knowledge from Amanda to use.
Great, thanks so much. So I put Christina's email in the chat so you can message her if you're interested in being on the list to know when the information comes out. So again, I just want to reiterate, this is a pilot program. We're testing options, so please bear with us. Appreciate your flexibility. Again, our first initial period is 6 months. If things are going well, there is potential to expand it based on funding and how successful the program is. Then we can request future funding in the future too. So there will actually be a page on the Compost website where I will be posting updates. So you'll see if any programs change. And now I want to tell you how to get your free swag. So let me post this all in the chat. And it's not letting me post it all at once because it's too big. Okay, one piece at a time. So your free swag. So the first 200 people that signed up for a workshop, one of the workshops, are on the list. We've had over 500 people sign up. So unfortunately, there's just not enough for everyone. I think probably about 80% of the folks on this call are eligible for a bin. I will email you literally when we are done this webinar with instructions on how to pick it up. If you didn't get a bin, it's really easy to purchase your own. You might find that you don't want a green bin anyway, or you can upcycle something. So if you do get a bin, it will have a little sticker on it with what items we accept. We're also giving out a sample of liner bags, and we'll give you the flyer too. If you did not get a bin, we have some stuff for you too. So you can pick up a magnet for your fridge or a sticker to put on your own bin that will tell you what items are acceptable and not. You can also pick up some sample compostable liner bags. And these are all available at 2 George. So I'll send out the information here shortly to the folks who won a bin, but if you didn't, you can show up to 2 George over by the permit center. There's a security guard who sits over there. His name is Jason. He's excellent, and he can help you access either your free compost bin or the extra magnet or sticker and some of these liner bags. So everyone should be able to grab something if you need it. I highly encourage you to start picking them up tomorrow. The office will be open 8 to 5, I believe, and I would recommend to pick them up as soon as you can because they are downstairs in 2 George right now. So try to do it by Friday at the latest. If you don't pick up your bin by Friday, I'm going to I'm gonna have to give them away to other people because there's so many people on the wait list. So make another arrangement with me if you have a problem with that, but try to pick them up Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. So we hope that will help prevent contamination. Again, here is the sign up website. It's just the homepage /compost. And again, if we're successful, we could keep doing this in the future. So here is my contact information. I have put it in the website. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram too. Put it in the chat. Let's see. I know there are more questions. So I wanted to thank our speakers and also just check in with our other panelists to see if there are any other thoughts the panelists want to share. And then feel free to jump off as if you need to, and we'll just remain here to answer any questions. So are there any thoughts from other panelists?
I did want to address one question that was asked earlier. It was about that raw meat going in there. We consider that a vector. I mean, it attracts insects and ticks and other things. So that's something we definitely want to keep out of there is raw meat. And it actually would void large amounts, but it would void our permit there. So that's the most important thing.
Great, thank you. And let me post in the chat where to pick these up. George is downtown Charleston. So again, there's two options. You either get the bin with all the extra bags and stuff, or you can pick up a magnet or a sticker to put on your own bin. All right. I know there are some more questions, so I think I'll just keep going through them if that sounds good. If anyone, does anyone else have anything to add? Any other panelists? Nope.
No, Katie, I'm gonna have to jump off here, but I appreciate it. Thank you everyone so much.
Okay, thank you
If they
so
ask any
much,
questions,
Patrick.
yeah, have them reach out to me. Absolutely. Thank you.
All
Bye-bye.
right, appreciate your time.
And Katie, I've got a jet as well, but my email is in the chat. So if anyone has any county specific questions or how to compost questions, anything in general, please reach out to me directly.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
If you want to bin, the email from me will come tonight. I work late. Okay, going back to my questions. Where can we pick up the bin? Da, da, da.
Katie, while you're
yeah.
going through those, I did see one on there about worm bins, and I'll jump on that real fast while
Perfect.
you're looking through some others. So vermicomposting or worm compost bins are going to be very different than your backyard bin. Now, worms, like I mentioned, will go to your backyard bin or pile. But if you're wanting to start a vermicomposting, that's really, the start of that is really an indoor project. I know people always look at me and go, Amanda, did you just say bring the worms inside my house? Yes, I did. So really you need to start those in their own little environment. I have found that especially veterinarian offices will give you the styrofoam coolers that like medicine and things come in if they're not reusing them. That's a great place to start them. Styrofoam can't be recycled. We don't want to make it fly everywhere when it gets picked up by the garbage truck. So use it for a worm bin. You can poke some holes in the top. You can buy worms usually from a local nursery, or they have a source that you can buy them. People have ordered them on Amazon. I don't know how well that works, but they start off with very small amounts of food waste. So if you have like a styrofoam container with say 500 worms in it, you're probably only going to go through a handful of food waste, maybe a week or every other week. They'll go through it pretty fast, but it's not a way to really get rid of all your food waste unless you're wanting to really start like a ginormous worm compost bin. I think Rachel Kenna is the one that asked that. Rachel, my information is on there. If you'd like to have a sidebar conversation about vermicomposting, I'd be glad to walk you through getting that set up. but it's a different ratio completely than backyard composting.
Okay, I don't see any other questions in the Q&A. We haven't answered, I don't think. Ariel, do you see anything else in the chat?
No, I think you're good.
Okay, does anyone have their hand up? Don't see any hands up, and I don't see any other questions. Okay, so to get the free bin, you had to sign up for the webinar and sign up for the program, ideally. You had to sign up for the webinar. So the thought is people trained, who are very well trained, will be the most successful. What is Amanda's contact info? Could you put that in the chat, Amanda?
Yep, I just replied, Rachel. Sorry about
Oh,
that.
thank you. Awesome. Sounds great. So I think we're good. I don't see any other questions. Last call. Open question. Okay, well, let's wrap up. Well, thank you everyone for your time. I appreciate it. Thanks for staying a few minutes over to our panelists. It takes everyone being involved to make progress on addressing climate change, but every little bit counts and every little bit adds up. So thank you for doing your part and for participating in this program. And please let us know if you have any input along the way. I hope everyone has a great night.